Greetings and welcome back. I have had a lot of inquiries on how I'm able to help people prevail in court. They're like, Derek, we've done everything from demurs to motions and objections and interlocutory appeals, and we're just not finding any relief. And we've been in court for 10 months now, and this matter should be settled by now. And they're correct. Justice should always be swift. All right, justice. I don't scold a dog a day after he urinates on my floor. If I catch him urinating on my floor, I rub his nose in it, I spank his ass, and he goes out the door. He's going to learn that you don't urinate and defecate where we rest our head. The old adage, you don't shit where you sleep. That's what it is. So, in that notion, in that physical content within your mind, we don't spank a dog a day later, an hour later, a week later for something that he did, right? And this goes to show that equity does not aid a volunteer. If you let something happen and then you say nothing and your silence is acquiescence to it, you agreed to it. It's not that it's right or it's wrong. It's the fact that you just didn't say anything. You didn't assert yourself. And so you lost that ability to do so, right? The beautiful thing about equity, though, is it's a time traveler. Equity can go into the past. Equity can go into the future. Equity can be in the present and the now time. All right? So everybody says, well, Dirk, how are you prevailing with people in court? 13-0 now, ladies and gentlemen. This is not an exaggeration. I get all the cases laying around here somewhere, and I'll pull them up and show them if you guys need the proof. I'm going to black out people's names just out of respect for them. But if you have Pacer account, you can go look up these court cases. Not a big deal. And the other thing is the perception of winning. People think that win is spelled W-I-N. It's not. It's not. It's spelled a number of different ways. Vacate, discharge, set off, dismissed, which I absolutely hate, because to dismiss a charge isn't actually to vacate it. To dismiss a charge means that it's just out, it's off in the back somewhere, and they can bring it back at any time. To dismiss without prejudice, and the difference between with prejudice. Okay, with prejudice means it's never coming back again. Just to dismiss without prejudice just means it's sitting back there sometime, and in the near future, if you violate another statute, code, city ordinance that they feel applies to you, which doesn't, because statutes, code, city ordinances do not apply to men. Okay, they apply to employees and volunteers alone, period. So, when we comprehend this and we understand how things are working, and we know that equity is a time traveler, equity always makes sure that what should be done shall be done. How am I prevailing in court? I'm going to tell you right now. Everything I do is in good faith, with good conscience, and for good reason. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. What am I articulating to you? Intent. Everything is based upon intent, and intent is the one thing in this world that cannot be proven. It must be stated by the man or woman, their intent. I can presume and assume all day long what your intent may have been, but until it comes from your mouth, it is absolutely unprovable. Okay? So, that is how we're prevailing in court, because we operate in good faith, for good reason, with good conscience, and pure heart and intent. We want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's it. And we will settle for nothing less. And in about 2 days, 3 days, maybe a week, all of a sudden we get this, we've dismissed the claim being brought against you. There was a technicality. Somebody forgot to dot an I, and because they didn't dot that I, because we're under military occupation and everything is by the military code and under the Lieber Code and the acts of war and emergency policy, because they didn't dot that I, that technicality is extravagant, and we're going to go ahead and dismiss this with prejudice, meaning we're never going to bring it back up, because we really don't want you back in here again, because you're bad for business. You see, we are the only ones that can stand in truth, light, with honor, dignity, and respect as man. They, as trustees on behalf of their principal, have a fiduciary duty to coffer and build up the public trust, for which builds up their retirement plans and everything else, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? They are unjustly enriching themselves for profit. So it's real simple. Although I may have violated the letter of the law, your statute, code, city ordinances, and provisions, which really are not law. Anybody in here that wants to say they're law, please now speak. Let the court reflect that nobody in here is challenging the fact that statutes, codes, city ordinances, and provisions are in fact not law, but rather public policy. And in so, I would also invite any man, woman here today willing to testify with firsthand knowledge that those statutes, codes, city ordinances, provisions, and policies apply to I as a man. Is there anybody in here that is willing to state under the pains and penalties of perjury, independently bonded with a hazard bond in case it caused me any harm, injury, damage, or loss, that I as a man am to abide by those statutes, codes, city ordinances, provisions, rules, and policies? Is there anyone in here that says those apply to I as a man? Yes or no? Let the record reflect, no one in this court today is here and prepared to testify with firsthand knowledge that statutes, codes, city ordinances, and provisions and policies apply to I as a man. Is there a man or woman today bringing a claim against me for which relief can be granted? It is my intent, in good faith, with good conscience, and for good reason, to provide remedy to any man, woman, or child that I may have harmed, injured, damaged, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Today, I am prepared to provide remedy in any way or manner they see fit. Whether they want me to go work at their house for a month, whether they want me to go dig fence posts, whether they just want some FRNs, or some gold, or some silver. If I've caused them harm, injury, damage, or loss, I am here today to provide remedy. Is that man or woman in this courtroom today? Let the record reflect. There is no man or woman in this court today bringing a claim against I that I have caused them harm, injury, damage, or loss, and thus a claim has been falsified, a record has been falsified, bringing I as a man into this court, falsifying a claim with an attempt to extort I as a man of my labor and sweat equity. Let the record reflect. Silence is acquiescence. Nobody in here is denying the fact that a falsified record has been created, creating fraud upon the court in an attempted extortion against I as a man, Derek Satan Gonzalez. You see how simple it is? You could beat these people up all day long. It's so simple. Now let's just say the lawyer gets cute, gets real smart, decides he's going to start talking. Every word that comes out of his mouth is a lie. The judge says, well, Derek, you're objecting and you're saying that he's a liar. Can you prove that? Sure I can. He's a fucking lawyer. He's a natural born liar. In fact, he's been trained for 7 years to manipulate situations and lie. In fact, he's got a license to lie. You got a bar card on you today, sir? I sure do. See? My point. He's a licensed liar. Oh, let the record reflect. Nobody's going to argue that, and it stands true, in fact, in law, that he is, in fact, licensed to lie and manipulate the situation, and he's created fraud upon the court by falsifying a record, not having a man or woman independently bonded to bring a claim against I, a man, for any injury, harm, damage, or loss that I may have caused inadvertently or knowingly at any point in time. That's a falsified claim, ladies and gentlemen. That's a breach of public policy. That's a breach of public trust. It's a breach of their oath of office. They're in breach of duty. All right? All in an attempt to extort you, which is a trespass by way of theft. You listen to me? Trespass by way of theft. I'm telling you, when I walk into a courtroom, those bastards look at their feet because they're looking for their soul. You ain't going to find it at the bottom of your feet. You need to start looking inside, in your heart, in your chest, in your mind, body, spirit, and soul. Because you sold yourself to the devil for materialistic things. And I'm going to tell you right now, hell is very real. It's very real. And I see people that walk around in hell all day long. I-O, off to work I go. All you got to do is learn the system. They've manipulated your mind. They've imprisoned your mind, led you to believe a certain way because a group of people think that way. You will be the only one going through the trial. You will be on your own, but you will not be alone. And what I mean by that is the power of Christ, who shed his blood for all sins, sins and debt being synonymous. Everything's paid for, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't mean that you're not a sinner. It just means that your sins have been paid for. All right? That blood dripping back into the soil, the substance of life, is the gold, is the value. All right? I had a judge one time ask me, he says, Derek, what do I have as surety that you'll be back? As if my performance bond, bid bond, payment bond, warehouse bond weren't enough. My word is my bond because I'm coming back here because I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And he goes, I know you do. And he walked out of the courtroom just like that. They can't stand in the light, ladies and gentlemen. They can't stand in the truth. Because what they're really doing is unjustly enriching themselves by creating misery, pain, and suffering for you and yours. And that's the fact. That's the fact. As soon as you get that in your head and you realize that David took down Goliath with a stone, and you can do it too. They're weaponizing thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. That's what they're doing. They're weaponizing thought process, manipulating the masses through tell-lie vision, and getting people to conform to their agenda, which is only to extort and fleece you so their retirement builds up. And they're working at the behest of bankers. Bankers, because they sold the de jure government. They didn't sell it. They stepped away from the de jure government, created a mirror image of what appears to be government, and they no longer have sovereignty. They're a corporation. So here's another one for you. I'm in a court, and I'm addressing, I'll just be nice to her. I'm not even going to drop her name. Let's just call her Jane Doe Smith, all right? I'm addressing Jane Doe Smith. I'll be polite to her. Because I've seen the change in her mentality. And I don't know that she does it all the time or if it's just when I'm in the courtroom, but I've actually seen her be honorable. And I've read some of the other court cases where she's lorded over child custody disputes, and she's been extraordinarily fair. I've never read another administrator's documents that are 50-50 custody, no child support, you're going to do what's best for the kids. It was all about the offspring. And I'm going to be honest, it touched my heart and I was impressed. So I'm not going to throw her through the ringer, but I will tell you the story. Jane Doe Smith goes by Honorable Smith, Honorable Judge Smith. So I call up the Secretary of State to see if the DBA Honorable Judge Smith is registered to do business in the state of Nebraska. They said, we don't have any Honorable Judge Smith. I said, okay, thank you. Then I call the American Bar Association. And I want to know, the Nebraska Bar Association. I want to know if Honorable Judge Smith is registered with their corporation, their criminal syndicate, their organization. And they say, nope, don't have one of those registered. And I said, okay, all right. And I hung up the phone. I was thinking to myself, okay, I know they have to be registered. I know that they have an affidavit in support of their oath. I know that they have to have this registered. How do I know this? Because I did a great amount of due diligence. So I call them back at the Nebraska Bar Association. I said, I got a question for you. Do you have a Jane D. Smith registered with a bar card at your affiliation? Sure don't have a Jane D. Smith registered here. And I'm going, well, fuck. All right. So I hang up the phone. I said, I'll call you back. I hang up the phone and I get to thinking for a while. I'm like, why can't I find these people? What am I doing wrong? Somewhere, someone has the documentation I'm looking for. I realize that the Secretary of State has some documentation, but I can't quite figure out what I'm doing wrong. See, when you nail it out of the park, when you actually make contact with that hammer to that head of that nail, you will drive your point home, and they are forced by public policy to be forthcoming with you. But only when you're very, very, very specific. You got to thread the eye of the needle, all right? So I call him back. I said, I've called earlier looking for Honorable Judge Smith registration. I've looked for Jane D. Smith being registered. I said, tell you what, do you have, by chance, a Jane Doe Smith registered with you? Hold on one second, sir. Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. She is registered with us. And I said, oh, that is wonderful. How relieving. I said, I have this Jane Doe Smith who is actually falsifying a record under a false and fictitious name, a misnomer, going by Honorable Judge Smith. And also on the paperwork, it says Jane D. Smith. And those false and misleading statements, as well as operating in the state of Nebraska under a false and fictitious name without being registered or having a registered trade name to do business within the state of Nebraska. And I'm just kind of curious who qualified and authorized her to operate in such a fashion and breach of public policy. Sir, that's an inquiry you're going to have to take up with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General. We really at this time don't have an answer for that, and we can't properly respond. Is there anything else we can help you with? I said, yeah. Would you mind sending me a certified copy of Jane Doe Smith's signature on her oath of office and her bar number? Sir, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that for you. That's the kind of resistance you're going to receive. It's coming. All right, just know that it's coming. But there are ways of getting around it. And it's not getting around it. There's a way of enforcing it and getting what you need. You see, everything they're doing is commerce. So what's the first thing that you need to do when dealing with an agent and agency? I need your W-9. Period. I need your W-9. I need 3 forms of identification. I need your full name. Don't be giving me no misnomer. Don't give me an unregistered DBA. Don't be trying to defraud the state from what they're rightfully entitled to. No. You're a policy enforcer, and you're in breach of trust. So I need that information because somebody in this place needs to hold these people accountable. How do you hold them accountable? You get the credentials, you get the information, and then if you're part of selfgovernanceU.com, I'm going to show you how to enforce it. Ladies and gentlemen, no man has a right to tell another man what to do absent a crime. Period. I can't be any more clear than that. And if there is no crime that occurred where a victim is alleging you of doing something, right? Because everybody's innocent until proven guilty, in all fairness. If nobody's alleging you of being a crime or vandalizing their humble abode or harming their property or anything, then you're the victim. They equally and oppositely say that they're the assailant and you're the victim. But you have to have the mindset to be able to see it, the eyes to see and the ears to hear. So I look forward to seeing you guys at selfgovernanceU.com. The things that we're teaching are phenomenal. 13 and 0. You want to know what gives my documents teeth? You want to know what gives these people who I preach and teach to teeth? Everything's done in good faith, with good conscience, and for good reason. With pure intent and a pure heart. We're just here to find remedy and provide remedy today. Today. Our intent is everything, and they can't deny it. And once that's on the record, ladies and gentlemen, it is so damning. It is unbelievable. Who's got the security? Prepared to bring it forward today. The beneficiary is known. I just need to know who's got the security so we can balance the books. That's commercial. Criminal implies that there's a man or woman that you've caused harm, injury, damage, or loss to. So if the case says CR and not CI, then they're alleging that it's criminal. But it really isn't criminal if the state is the alleged plaintiff. Can't be, because you can't hurt the state. It's a figment of your imagination. Uncle Sam is some funky, fugly-looking white guy that is drawn as a cartoon character, for fuck's sake. He's no more real than the Easter Bunny or Kris fucking Kringle. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you at selfgovernanceU.com. I hope this video helps you in your trialing times when you're being tested. Don't lose your spirituality. Religion is one thing. I'm not a religious man. I'm very spiritual. I know the difference between right and wrong, just like you guys do. So it's time to say enough's enough and hold these people accountable. So when I use Jane Doe Smith's name in court, she finally looks at me at one point and goes, Mr. Gonzalez, is there a reason you're using my full name? Absolutely, because you're 100% liable for your fucking negligence. I'm absolutely going to nail your proverbial nuts to the fucking wall. Yes. That's why I'm identifying you in that manner. Because I know that it's not the court, which is a figment of man's imagination, and just on the 4 corners of fucking paper that's causing me harm, injury, damage, and loss. It's your ignorant, pompous ass thinking you're going to run over me today to unjustly enrich yourself with the fucking prosecutor while conspiring against my unalienable rights. Yeah, that's why I'm calling you Jane Doe Smith. And if you don't like it, you're mad at your dad, not at me. He's the one that fucking named you after all, right? You see how this changes the tide when you disregard the titles? Get rid of the titles. The titles are just meant there to confuse you, to lead you to believe that in society there's a hierarchy, when the true hierarchy is us as God-fearing, loving men and women who love thy neighbor and conduct ourselves honorably, in good faith, with good conscience, and for good reason. We state our intent, and we make sure that if there's anybody out there that's harmed, injured, or damaged by us, that we handle our affairs. We take care of shit, all right? That's it. It's that simple. That's how I'm prevailing in court. Good faith, good conscience, for good reason is the teeth that binds these people. Then when they're negligent in their duty to perform, offset, discharge after your intent was so pure and their actions are so nefarious, now you got them. Now you got them. It's that simple. They're unjustly enriching themselves. They're not filing their 1099-Rs. Are you kidding me? That's commercial. By the way, what I'm talking about is equity. And yes, I am not free from sin. I cuss. I get a little worked up. Forgive me for that. That's just who I am. One day maybe I'll settle down. I'm still full of piss and vinegar. And more than anything, I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off that the American people, the people that I thought were so brilliant, have actually been dumbed down to the point where they don't know their ass from the hole in the ground. It breaks my heart to see it. I dropped out of school at 13 years old, guys. I know people with MBAs in banking that know nothing about banking. And I talk to them about banking, the comptroller, the negotiable instruments, how they're monetized, all that. And I got this gal who literally has an MBA in banking and goes, I learned nothing in school. I don't know anything about banking. She finally confessed to me. She goes, Derek, I don't have a clue about what you're talking about. It's right here. It's in the banking manuals. How do you pay $70,000 for an education and not know a damn thing about banking? It's unbelievable. And the reason it is that way is because if they keep everybody so compartmentalized, nobody will be able to put the picture together. It's a puzzle, ladies and gentlemen. You have to be able to decipher the bullshit from the fact and put the pieces together to the point that they make sense. And then it's a matter of putting everybody on notification. That's called due process of law. Due process of law is really simple, ladies and gentlemen. I can say whatever I want. I'm 100% liable for what I say. You know, the First Amendment is a strict policy that's laid in place to protect my unalienable rights of freedom of speech. The First Amendment doesn't coffer me any rights. A piece of paper could never coffer me any rights. My rights are unalienable, okay? My rights are equal across the board with everybody else's. So, when we look at this and we realize that pieces of paper are nothing more than an idea, they're a fallacy of the mind. Perhaps some of them are good ideas, but they don't coffer any rights. They don't grant you anything. You have unalienable rights, but if you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights. So it's important to learn this. You can say whatever you want. It doesn't mean that you're not liable for what you say, because you absolutely are. If you threaten somebody to do harm to them, you're liable for that. You're liable for that. Absolutely you are. But your freedom of speech to tell them to fuck off and fly a kite? Where's the liability? If anybody's liable for having to force you to tell them to fuck off, it's them. But only if you know how to stand. And I would encourage everybody to be polite and respectful in court, because when coming into equity, it's important to come with integrity. And cursing is a bad thing. All right. I've cursed in court before. I've still prevailed. Don't do it. If you can come true, correct, clean cut, nice. I mean, I show up in concrete, dirt, and dust after using, demo saws and stuff. I really don't care about my appearance, because it's not the appearance of my physical being. It's the intent and the integrity for which I come forward to stand in truth, the light, with honesty, dignity, and respect. That's it. So I'm very animated in this because I want you guys to get it in your damn heads. It's really, 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 really simple to destroy these guys' fallacy. Where's your delegation of authority to operate outside of Washington, D.C.? Are you currently registered with the Foreign Registration Act and compliant with the 1938 Foreign Registration Act and have a certificate that you can produce today? Where's your bar card and your license to practice law in this state? You appear to have falsified a document bringing I, as a man, into this courtroom, and yet there's no sworn pleadings under the pains and penalties of perjury from an affiant stating harm, injury, damage, or loss. That's a denial of due process of law. I mean, I can go on for weeks on this shit. I literally have lawyers that I can hear their change jingle in their pocket when I go off. And you can just tell they're just nervous. Nervous as a whore in church. They're not sure. Judge, Judge, I think this move right here is the silent motion to the judge. God, Lord, please help me. I don't want to pay this man today. Can you, Judge, the state would like to motion for a continuance. I think this is code for I'm willing to dismiss this. If you could just go along with it. Well, provided that that man over there doesn't bring a claim for $60,000, provided that you don't have your plaintiff here today. Yeah, I'll allow a continuance so you can send him a piece of paper that says it's dismissed. But if you're really sharp, if you're really quick, and there's no man or woman in the court bringing a claim against you today, show a cause why this man over here, who alleges to be and have a power of attorney for an inanimate object, a state, if you will, a figment of his imagination, shouldn't cut me a check for $60,000 right now, payable to the bearer on demand, for wasting my time. Whew. Talk about power. Ooh, damn. That burns. See, the prosecutor's responsible for bringing a checkbook. Yeah, negotiable instruments, a check, payable to the bearer on demand. Why? Because if he gets caught in his artificer scheme, he owes you, but only if you're quick enough to do it. A lot of times the judge will go, this court case is dismissed, and they'll get up and run off the bench. No. Sit down, administrator. The beneficiary is known here, all right? And we're going to make sure that the beneficiary is made whole today, that the estate is made whole, and that nothing is being abandoned or left on the table for you ignorant bastards to take from us, right? So show a cause why this man shouldn't issue a check immediately. And that's not for the judge to show a cause. That's for the man that brought the falsified claim against you to show a cause why he shouldn't get out his checkbook right there and issue you a check for 60 grand. And it could be for whatever you want. It could be for $5. It could be just on principle. You could do it for $1. $1. All right? It's that simple. No, not dismissed. Oh no. Why would you let it be dismissed? They need your consent to dismiss it, and your silence is acquiescence. I'm not allowing you to dismiss this case. If anything, you'll vacate it, but only after I'm made whole, which means this man over here needs to show of cause why I shouldn't be compensated to the tune of 60 grand for having to defend myself against such a frivolous case, because ignorance of the law excuses no one, need I remind you. Huh? And after 7 years of law school, this cotton-picking rat in the woodpile, he ought to fucking know better, right? So get out your checkbook, dickhead, and pay me. Thank you for your time. I appreciate being invited to you guys' business meetings. It's always a pleasure. I really love doing business with you guys. Thank you much. And by the way, go ahead and give me a W-9 too, since we're doing business. I got to report this to the IRS, so we can bring down that national debt. Just here to do the good works of the Heavenly Father, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. Just here to do good works with good conscience, for good reason, and a good sound mind to help our fellow brothers and sisters. That's it. That's all we're required to do. That's our duty. Make an observation, create a record, and report it. 3 simple steps. That's all you got to do. See you at selfgovernanceu.com.